Welcome. I'm Cecil Bullard from the Institute for Automotive Business Excellence. I am I guess I'm the founder now and not the CEO. Uh, 43 years in the automotive business. Sitting next to me is Michael Smith.
Hi, everybody.
And um, Michael and I met 3 years ago
Yeah, something like that.
ish.
hmm
Michael's an expert on mergers and acquisitions and has put some things together with some of our clients that were very successful and profitable for them.
Yes.
And a couple of years ago, we decided that Michael needed to be a part of the Institute. And so here you are.
Here we are.
Why don't you tell them a little bit about your.
Yeah, I love your background in the concentration of this industry. I came from a different background. I was in the Fortune 500 level consulting business and grew up in 50 or 60 industry verticals. I haven't ever really counted. Different industries, different dynamics, different edges to them. Gives me a great background to come here. I think I got here about 10 years ago. Met a guy who had 3 shops. And he said, I'm not having enough fun with this to keep doing it. I either got to make more money or have more fun or both. Can you help me? And I said, maybe. What do you want? He said, can you look at my little 3-shop system like you would have one of the bigger companies and help me? Tell me what you see. And I want you here because you're an outsider to the industry, not an insider. And I want you to tell me what you see. And that got me started. Got me started loving this business. The owner operators that we serve, the people that we've become very fond of, hardworking people, 20, 30, 40-year legacies in this business. I love the people that we have the privilege to work with.
My dad was one of those guys that, when he was 12, he quit school and went to work at the Ford dealer, pushing brooms and
Yeah.
cleaning stuff up, and eventually became a Ford master mechanic at the dealership, and then he started his own shop in 1961.
61.
Yeah, and he worked there for a very long time. He's gone now. He's been gone for I think about 12 or 13 years. I try not to keep count of the
Yeah.
time, right?
Right.
Because it's emotional.
Indeed.
But he was the guy that worked really, really hard in his business, but it didn't have the kind of value. And so today, I think what we're talking about is value and how do we value these businesses? How are they valued? And I think I'd like to add that for about the past 6 or 7 years, I've done quite a few cases where I've testified in court where we've either had like a husband and wife, they're getting divorced. And, the last one was kind of interesting. The husband was having an affair with the service advisor, and the wife got kind of kicked out, and then the husband started doing stuff off the books, and so it looked like the business had no value, but it really had value because of what had happened previously. And then there was one that I did in Nevada where two owners, one guy left for 3 years, the other guy closed the corporation and opened another corporation. And this guy came back and wanted $1 million. And so I've testified in several court cases about how we do value. I wrote an article, it's probably 15 years ago now, about kind of the 6 or 7 major ways that we kind of value automotive businesses. And that has changed a little. I think to me, it's kind of interesting that I think 4x, maybe 5x was 5x times EBITDA. So earnings before, which want to say income tax, interest, tax, and depreciation.
And amortization.
Yeah, and amortization. Okay, and the amortization thing I always mess up. But basically, at the end of the year, what do I have left
Right.
in the pile before I pay taxes and interest on loans and things like that? And then, so currently the industry 2.8 is the last number. I saw that about 3 months ago in a industry article. And so I've been kind of quoting that. That would fall in line with where we're at, somewhere between about 1x, and about 4x or maybe 5x if I found the right buyer. But really now, because of the mergers and acquisitions and the venture capital, some of that's kind of changed. I mean, the core of it really hasn't. You have to be profitable. Uh, you have to be growing as a company. You have to have a decent lease or be able to own the property. What does the owner do in the business? If the owner is the service advisor or the lead tech, then the business is worth less because if the owner leaves,
Right.
et cetera. Can you carry the staff forward? Do you have systems, processes, procedures in your
Yep.
business? So I wrote that article, I don't know, years ago, published in one of the industry magazines, and I think that's how I ended up testifying in
Sure.
court, was
Right.
because
Yep.
somebody dug that up and said, "Oh,
Right.
this guy knows what he's
Right.
talking
Yeah.
about." So I got them
Well,
all fooled.
yeah. No. Well, one of the things that caused me to stay when I got introduced to this industry was the dynamic of where we're going, and the fact that I think there's an estimated at least 2/3 of the owner operators, if not more, in our industry are baby boomers who are interested in getting out in the next handful of years or slightly more, maybe sooner if you're exhausted. And the stories are heartbreaking. I have a high performance group of top shops that are becoming topper shops, if you will. And one of the guys told a story at our last meeting, bought the business from his dad. And he said, love my dad, worked for my dad. He was the third generation in that family. And he said, and we wanted to give our dad as much money as we possibly could for the business that he was selling to us. And he said, and we did all the right valuation stuff. And when we were done, the business was worth, are you ready for this? $13,000.
Yeah.
40 years
Yeah.
in the business. It was worth $13,000 on paper from an investor perspective. And it broke their hearts. Bought the business from them for that, gave them a job, all that, right? And then has turned it into something extraordinarily different now. But that's one of the reasons I'm here, because there's a lot of wonderful car service companies that do a great job with your customers, that take care of your people very well. Long years of long days and all the stress that goes in our industry, and you don't have enough to retire on at the end, and that just, it breaks our hearts,
It's
right?
one of the
There's
things that
no way.
makes me very passionate about the industry. Having my dad
Yeah.
work his, just work his fingers to the bone
Yeah.
his entire life.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, he loved what he was doing,
Yeah.
but we were never well off.
Yeah.
We were always on the poor side.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Later, when I managed his shop, we started making money, and so he was able to do some things and put some money away for his retirement. But
Yep.
there's so many shop owners that are not only just like working so hard in their business, but they don't understand at the end that it's not worth very much because you didn't do the things that, or maybe you did. There's instances even now we're doing some evaluation. We're doing a lot of this right now for some of our clients and some other people. Like, hey, what is my business worth? I think it might be worth. We got a guy. He thinks it's worth maybe 200,000 or 300,000. And when we looked at what he's pulling out and the way he's pulling it out, unfortunately, if he had not done it that way and done it a different way, then he would have got the multiple, meaning he took 150,000 as a salary that probably should have been a draw to put in the profit. And we can put some of that back and create some additional wealth out of that. But if he had done it right initially and knew what he was up to, it could even be. I think we figured out it was worth a little over 800,000 when we did the putbacks,
Yeah.
but it probably could have been worth $1 million too,
Sure.
right? And so
Well,
I think that's the
and that's one of the, that's one of the statistics. One of the things we got to know each other walking beside very successful clients, either side of them, looked out over at each other and said, this is not like two separate sets of train tracks. This is a set of train tracks that the same clients are going to go down. His is one track, mine's another one. We should make them parallel and do this thing together. But one of the topics that came up was that issue of value. And the fact that, the private equity world, when you ask them, take all small businesses that are privately held, like our industry primarily is, and you ask the private equity people, what percentage of those companies out of 100% have been run such that they have been good investment? They would be good investments for us to buy as an investor. Not have they been good cash machines for the owner, but is there something to buy at the end? Guys, the statistic is 80 to 85% of the privately held businesses in this country, and not just our industry, but all industries, 6 million plus businesses, 80 to 85% of them have been used as like a cash machine and do not get this, do not have enough significant value in them for an investor to even buy them.
So I was talking about the case that I did in Vegas a few years ago in
Yep.
Las Vegas. The other guy came back and they had showed like 100,000 in profit,
Yeah.
but they hadn't paid themselves. So one guy was the service advisor, the other guy was the lead tech, and then they
Yes.
had a couple of other techs, and they did like 500, 600,000. They showed 100,000 in profit, but when you put their salaries back into the company, it actually lost like 40 grand. So it had zero value. I mean, it really had no value. When I got done testifying and brought all the pieces in play, and I said, an average service advisor in this area would make X, and an average, tech would make Y, and so the company really lost over $40,000 in this year. And the judge was like, okay, we're done. There's no court case. They just dismissed the case because there was no value.
There's no conversation.
And you
to
see
have.
it. You see it a lot. I mean, the other thing I see is guys that don't figure this out in a timely fashion. Like, okay, I don't want to think about it. I got a couple guys right now that are in their mid 60s, and by the way, I'm on the lower edge of the baby boomers, right? So these guys are boomers, right? But they don't want to think about their retirement. They got sons in play. The sons are kind of being underpaid, undervalued, right? But if they don't figure it out when the time comes, when they have to, 5 years from now, 4 years from now, there just won't be value there.
Well, if you think about it, that if we don't build businesses that have investor value, that is obvious to an investor, what do you do with it at that point? You come to the end, you got really two choices. One, close it, just stop, which gives you really nothing other than the asset sale of whatever you can dig out of the business and sell at a super discount to somebody, or you sell it to a key employee that may be a family member for as much as you can get out of them. If you're lucky, and I'm going to say if you're lucky in maybe a non-ethical way, you sell it to them for more than it's worth because they don't know any better. When you fix a price to it, they say, okay, but that's it. Those are our two choices.
Well, and
right?
you are an investor whether you like it or not. And I think there's an industry like, I don't want to deal with private equity. And so you're not going to deal with private equity. So you're not going to have an investor like a cash investor come in. You're going to deal with your son, your daughter, your cousin, or a long-term employee.
Right.
And that is a big part of what happens.
Right.
But if you look at money management, and they don't have any money.
Right.
So maybe they've saved 50,000 or 100,000, and they put it down on your business at 400,000 or 500,000, and you carry it. But those payments, first of all, they're not going to give you a lifestyle that is comfortable, right? And if you have one health issue, you're done.
You're done.
And then, and the other part of that for me is it's just like that. If they screw up a year and a half in, and you think you're retired, and they've screwed it up, and now you're coming back, and you got the original 100,000, and maybe you had 50 or 60,000 in payments over the year and a half they were in, but you only got a third of the money, and there's nothing there.
Right.
There's nothing left because they've chased the customers away. They've pissed off all the vendors, et cetera.
Well, I want to go back to something you said. I don't want to sell to a private equity investor. Okay, if you don't close the front door, you are going to sell to a private equity investor. And this is something I talk to my clients about here all the time. I want to see a mindset shift. I want to see it in the industry. I want to see us go from saying, if I say, what do you do for a living? And say, I own an auto service shop. Really, tell me about that. I'm an owner operator. You know what I want the second answer to be? I'm a private equity investor who happens to invest in auto service companies. And I'm going to tell you, that's a huge mindset shift because, and I'm not correcting you, I'm saying this is the conversation that happens is, I don't want to be involved in investment conversations.
The-
You were when you bought the company. You bought it as a private equity investor, regardless of who
Whether
you
you
bought
knew
it
it or
from.
not,
Yes,
right?
and you're
Right.
selling it to somebody who's a private equity
Yeah.
investor in your company.
Oh no, I started it because I just needed to make a living, and I didn't feel like I could make a living where I was, and I wasn't getting paid enough, and I
All that.
wasn't in
I can
control,
do
and
it better
somebody
than
was
that
telling me
crazy
how to
owner.
do it. But you're a private equity investor for
Right.
yourself. I mean, and that shift really does need to happen. I
Indeed.
mean, and the other thing that I think is cool because we have a lot of clients around the United States and Canada primarily, and I'm watching these young guys come in their late 20s, early 30s, and they're like, I'm going to have 55 shops, and they're going out and getting 2, 3, 4, 5 really relatively quickly,
Right.
but they're coming in with a completely different mindset of this is an investment. And you like it or not, you may have come in like my father out of, like, I call it serendipity,
Right.
right?
Accidentally falling
Accidentally,
backwards into it.
I opened a shop. I ended up working at Ford to sweeping floors and then learned how to be a mechanic. And so then I opened a shop serendipitously, right? But you are an investor, whether you like it or not, in your own success or your own ultimate failure, right? And there's nothing. We've done multiple plans for guys. I had someone who, if I said his name, a lot of people in the industry would know who I'm talking about. They know the guy, and he's got multiple shops at this point. But he came on at a shop that was one of the guys in our group, knowing that in 7 years he was going to buy the shop. All right, but they didn't get the details in play, right? And so at the end, the owner is looking at what the value of the shop is, and so is he. He's going, well, it's only worth $1 million, right? And the owner's saying, well, I don't have any money set aside, and I need $1.5 million to retire. So now the price is suspect. After 7 years of him putting his life in there, the price is suspect, right? And the deal almost didn't happen. I had to tell the buyer, pay an extra $100,000. Just do it because the value is there in the
We'll
shop.
get it back.
And he did. But then the owner wanted even more. He wanted, like, the roof needed to be replaced because he'd never fixed the roof and it leaked for years. And it was like going to cost $47,000 to fix the roof. And the owner wanted the new buyer to fix the roof and not have that included. And I was finally like, go back to the owner and go, sorry, no deal.
Yeah.
Deal. But so I did another one for another guy, which if I mentioned, people would know. I think they ended up with 6 or 7 shops at this point. But I don't know, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, we made a deal with one of the key employees that if they grew the business, we would give them up to 25% of the company as stock over 7 years. And at the end of 7 years, if they had grown the business enough, they would have 25% of the stock. Plus, they would then be able to buy the business, but the business was worth, I don't know, 10, 15 times what it was worth before.
Right.
Even though I gave up 30%, I still came out way ahead.
Right.
And that deal went down as planned, right? And so now there's a guy that owns multiple shops who came in, they negotiated. We were involved in those negotiations and setting that plan up. And then 7 years later, okay, we have an agreement. This is the agreement. This is fair market value. Boom, boom, boom.
Right.
And everybody's happy and walks away from it. And the owner can retire if he wants to retire. He can do other things if he wants to do other things.
Yeah.
But too many of the guys, I have another guy right now who is my age, and he's not unhealthy, but who knows, right? At this age, who knows? I mean, you could wake up tomorrow and they could tell you got a tumor in your head, right?
So that happened to somebody I know.
Somebody we know. But he doesn't want to have the conversation with his son. He doesn't want to do what he needs to do.
Right.
And it's really not like he doesn't want to take care of his kid or he doesn't want his business going. It's like, I don't want to think that someday I might die, right?
Well,
so I don't want to have that conversation.
And you add to the fact that we do not work in an easy business. It is complicated, time-consuming, energy draining, and the important stuff sometimes we all talk about gets pushed to the back for the urgent.
I cannot tell you
Happens a lot.
how many guys we have right now that are in their late 60s, early 70s
Yep.
that have to get out of their business, just have to,
Mhm.
but they haven't done what they need to create the value to be able to, in my opinion, retire with dignity, etc.
Yep.
And it's
here's an
it's
idea.
heartbreaking.
So here's an idea, no matter where they are in the business, right? That the owner operator says, you know what, from this day forward, I'm going to see if I can make this as valuable from an investment perspective as I can, regardless of who I sell it to. So you don't want to play the private equity game, completely understand why. Don't. That's fine. But what does it hurt you to build a company that has as much investment value as you can, that along the way makes you more money than you've ever made before, continues to grow faster and better than you've ever had before, gives you the resources to build up a better team, to go get better customers, right? It's kind of like, what's the losing proposition in this? If you just go that way and still decide to sell it to whoever at the end, along the way, you win. So the point is, start now. Well, think about the end now, regardless if you're 20 years old or 65 years old.
I don't care what age you are. I don't care if you're brand new coming in or you're 65 or 70. You need to be thinking about what your out strategy is.
Yes.
No matter what. And,
absolutely.
And the good news is if you're 25 or 30, you have lots of time. If you're 65 or 70, there's not much time.
You still got lots of time, right?
Right.
You know? So, we keep telling ourselves that every day. We still got lots of time. Right?
But we are, we are setting ourselves up as investors to be successful. And I think one of the things that drives me nuts about our industry is understand how to run your business profitably and don't feel guilty about making profit, because that's what it's about, right? Because if you don't, you're going to come to this point where you're like, I got to get out. I'm not healthy enough or whatever. And there's nothing there for you. I mean, it has no real value.
I want to hear your opinion about this. So I'll toss out an idea, right? So if you say to yourself, I feel guilty about making a profit, and a lot of our clients, they struggle with this, right? And
the whole industry kind of does.
The whole industry does. So, right. So if we say, okay, you're welcome to feel guilty about that, but let's say this, you're going to need to, when you go to another place to get service, whether you hire a lawyer to help you with a will, or whether you go to buy a service, you go to buy a product.
I'm going to put in air conditioning in my house or
right?
whatever,
your HVAC goes out, and you spend 12 grand on a new one, whatever it is, right? You sit down. Are you worried about their profit margin when you do that? No, the price matters, but it's back to the quality of the equipment. It's like, is it the right fit for the house? Let's stay with HVAC, right?
Yeah.
Do I overbuy? Do I underbuy? Is there a warranty? What does it look like? Are these people
they using
good at putting in?
Also ran piece of equipment? Are they putting a ream in or something that has a brand name?
Or do you go to your HVAC person, guy or gal, and go, hey, listen, I want you to put in the cheapest possible thing you can that's going to be problematic for me in very short order, and I don't care if you have a warranty or not, just give me the lowest price you possibly can. It's kind of exaggerating, but like, you're not going to make that other decision. You're going to make the decision to buy the quality, pay the right price for it, sleep at night.
I don't want to think about it for the next 25 years. If I'm going to spend that kind of money, I don't want to think about it.
And so here's the point that I'm making is you draw your customers in, and we know this, based on how you approach that philosophy. If you feel guilty about making a good margin in your business, a good profit, and then you start to cut the profit amounts to be able to be more price competitive in the market, I'm going to say this from a competitive advantage standpoint, you're already starting to play a losing game. Because if you think about it, there's only one low price player in every market, just one. Only one person can be at the bottom of that game, and
there's
everybody.
There's only one Walmart.
It's a race to destruction.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, and that's the thing I always say is that no matter how cheap you can be, someone can be cheaper than you, right? You can't win that game.
You cannot win that game.
And so, in my crystal ball, the future of the automotive industry is you got the cheap guy. You're always going to have the cheap guy working out of his house, doesn't have workers' comp, whatever.
Don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. But you're going to have the guy that gives really great service and a great product. Those are the only two that are going to exist. And we've seen this happen in multiple industries. I mean, Kmart, where'd they go, right? I mean, Target kind of holds on. It's a middle player. If you think Walmart and Nordstrom's and, Target's a little bit of a middle player. But even them, we know that if I go to Target, I'm going to pay a little more money. I believe I'm going to get a little higher quality, blah, blah, blah.
They're not playing the low price game.
No, they're really not. And so I guess this is about how do you value a shop?
Yes.
Okay. And so you need 3 years worth of profit and loss statements minimal
Mhm.
for someone to really take a look at your business and go, here's
Mhm.
what it ought to be worth,
Right.
right? And the primary thing is, how much profit did you make? I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's these other factors like, have you been growing or shrinking?
Yes.
2020
Mhm.
hurt a lot of companies,
Right.
not because they didn't survive or they didn't even make money in 2020. They just didn't make as much as they did previously.
Yep.
And the banks and everything, they're like, well, you're not worth, we can't loan you money, or we can't do this
Mhm.
because you had a
Mhm.
low year. So it's about consistency of profit. That's that's I don't know, that's 50-60% of it.
Mhm.
And how much? Because if you make a 4% profit or you make a 20% profit, the 4% profit company has no value. I mean, almost nothing, right? Even if it's, we did 40 million and we made 4%,
Mhm.
and by the way, there's no auto shops doing 40 million that made 4%. They won't survive.
You can't get that
You
big on
can't do
4%.
that,
Nope.
right?
You have nothing to invest.
But that's like the bulk of it really is that consistency of
Sure.
profit over time.
Yep.
And because that's what the bank is willing to
Yeah.
lend on. That's what creates most of the value.
Yep.
There are other things like if the owner doesn't work in the company, as far as like I might do the books or I might come in and once a week and kind of rah the guys, but I'm not fixing cars and I'm not writing service.
Right.
That adds to that
Mhm.
means I get a bigger X.
Mhm.
But everything, and so you also have these owners right now that are like, well, I buy all my groceries through the company, right? So their whatever bill is huge, and the company makes a lot less profit, and they think they're saving themselves because they're not paying taxes on that
Right.
money, right? Saves them
Yep.
that I don't know, that 25% on the money. So, but let's say that I do that and it's $50,000 a year that I'm spending, and I'm gonna make 50,000 less, and I'm gonna not pay taxes on that 50 grand, which would be 20, I don't know, 23, 27% or
Mhm.
something. So it's gonna save me 10, 12,000.
Mhm.
But that 50,000, when I go to sell it, if it's a 4X or a
It's three. Just make
3X,
it 3x. Right.
3X,
That's
that's
150 grand.
$150,000. How many years do I have to do
That's
that
right.
to make up for that
It's 10 to 1.
$150,000 I'm not going to get
Yep.
at the end?
Yep.
I mean, and
So
so
let's pretend for a second that you do want to play an investment game, and I call it a game because there's lots of strategies. It's like playing
everything's
chess,
a
right?
game. Life
Everything,
is a game.
life's a game. That's how we enjoy what we're doing here anyway. So what we talk about is just go with me for a minute. Say you want to make this worth as much as you can to an investor. So what Cecil was saying is absolutely right. The baseline you have to present into the investment community is better than your average shop in our industry. The average shop in our industry is a 4% net at the end. The paycheck does or doesn't. Sometime 1 month the owner gets a paycheck, 1 month they don't. 1 month they get a paycheck, 1 month they don't. It's 2 to 3 employees. This is the average shop in our industry out of 235,000.
Yeah,
Right?
approximately. Yeah.
Okay. So if you think from an investor's perspective, that doesn't even get you to the table. And this is kind of the point that I think we're trying to make. If you're struggling at that level, you can't stop now, right? If you want to you don't even have to want to win at the investment game, but if you're going to sell it to have anything really meaningful come back to you to retire on, we have to get out of this sort of typical industry thinking and start saying, okay, and I'm going to put it this way, what does an investor want to see when they come to the table to give me more than that minimum amount, the 2.5 times of that 4% net, right? They won't even pay you for that.
How
But
about a
so
4% net? You won't make 2.5 times. You're
no,
gonna
you
make
won't.
less. So
Yeah.
you might get a 1X or maybe even a 2X.
So what does it
But
take to make more, right? So let's talk about that. When an investor comes in, the minimum that you have to show them is steady growth of revenue and profits over a 5-year period of time, that you can tell a story in the marketplace. What is your unique competitive advantage? Not what your competitive advantage that's the same as his and hers and his and hers.
you got to
A
stop.
unique thing,
And we
right?
have to, in our industry, we have to stop thinking about, well, I use a better water pump or,
Yep.
whatever. Or I have ASC certified master technicians. That's
nobody
not your
nobody else ever
that's
said
not
that,
your
right?
competitive advantage. Your
Right.
competitive advantage is how you make your client feel, right? And
Exactly.
and the consistency that you create
Hmm.
in your company
Hmm.
because of that.
Right.
That's
Hmm.
those things are your competitive advantages.
So there's a list of things that private equity will pay more for than just a well-run financial shop. So let me give you the short list. Human capital. Do you have the rock stars working for you, leaders and team members? That's one. Number two is social capital. Your culture, your brand, and your market reputation. Is it superior? We know the definition of superior brand, superior culture, superior market reputation. Let me just get the list out and we'll come back to them if I
Yeah.
can, right? Number three is customer capital. Have you captured the premium customers in your marketplace? If you can make the case that the rock stars are yours, the market position is yours in terms of leadership and influence, and the customers are there, you got the best customers in town, then they say, there's one more thing we want to ask you. Have you institutionalized all of this so that when you, the owner, walk away with a check and we take the keys from you, that this thing will continue in the excellence that you built for us after we buy it? And if they feel confident that all of that is there, we're talking 2 to 3 times more value coming back to you than if we just run the average kind of a shop. Cecil.
Well,
Yeah,
so I want to go back to those four, but
absolutely.
it's kind of like this. So I'm running a 4% shop and I'm making 60,000 a year, right? So I'm doing 1,200,000. I'm net 60 plus
Mhm.
whatever I'm taking out of the company.
Right.
And I can do some putbacks depending on how what I do in the company and how ingrained I
Mhm.
am,
Mhm.
right? And so if I'm making 40,000, then that shop has no value no matter what. And these guys build like, well, we have the reputation in the area. Okay, great. But if you don't have the team, if
Mhm.
you don't have the other things that go along with that, then it's not worth it. That reputation.
Absolutely.
By the way, I see guys with great shops as far as reputation goes, with not enough profit, where they're closing their doors because nobody can buy it. Nobody wants to buy it. No
Right.
bank will loan on
Right.
it, blah, blah, blah. And it makes me, again, a lot of things make me crazy. It's one of those things.
Mhm.
So go back to the four. What was the
Yeah.
first thing that you said?
Human capital.
So
Rock stars.
human
Hmm.
capital. So what you're always doing, if you do this right, is you're always building a team,
Absolutely.
right? So everything that I do in this company and in the shops was to build a team of successful people. So I don't have to be there
Right.
to guide that team or lead that
Yep.
team or answer all their questions
Mhm.
for them. Not because of value, frankly, because I never thought of it that way quite. I thought of it in this sense. I don't want to be locked and tied into this day to day. Like my dad's shop had a room that was like probably 10 or 11 feet wide by 20 feet. That's where the counter was. That's what when I ran his shop, that's where I spent 90% of my life was in that
That corner,
11 by
that little
20
space.
space, right? And it drove me nuts. And I'm like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. I
Yeah.
can't. That's kind of why I like what I'm doing because I can
Right.
go. I'll be on the East Coast next week,
Right.
and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But so I need to be building human capital teams
Yes.
of people that can do the job without me,
Right.
right? And some of these guys, God bless you, but you're so. I need to be the guy that
Mm.
literally is the guy that's the best guy that makes all the decisions that does because only I can make those decisions and only I really know how to fix the cars and only I
Mhm.
know how to talk to
Yep.
and and that is so much crap
So
that is
let me tell you,
bad for
and
you.
let me tell you how you break free from that. Right? You have to have a mindset shift that you shouldn't be the answer person, and that's a mindset shift. There's a dopamine hit that goes with being the to being the answer person. Right? I'm Cecil. I'm stuck. Can you help me? Oh, sure I
Yeah,
can.
let me help you.
Let me tell you what to do. And then
Yeah.
thanks, boss. And then you walk away, and Cecil's like, well, he's glowing, right?
I'm a
That's a.
genius.
I'm not
I'm so
kidding.
smart.
That's the same dopamine addiction that takes kids back to social media, right? That dopamine addiction, owners who do this, so you feel good about that. But guess what? I talk all the time about an investor. I got a short list of questions. I got medium lists. I got long lists that investors use. That's what we train our clients in. One of the questions on that list is, and this is serious, you've heard this over and over, how much do you work on the business versus in the business? And early owners will say, what do you mean? It's like, what are the roles that you play in the business right now? And an owner may say, oh, I'm the fallback guy. I answer the questions nobody else can answer. When the service advisor team is down, I'm at the front desk. I'm under a car whenever a tech doesn't show up. I do all the bookkeeping, my spouse and I, all this, right? At the end of the day, you know, every one of those roles that you play working in the business is something that the new owner has to pay somebody to bring to the table when they buy the business. So you want to work yourself into a position, and I'm going somewhere with this, where you don't have to do that. And you may say, I can't do that. My people aren't that good. There you go. That's your problem. Your people aren't that good. Train them, hire a different class of people. We know exactly what it means to be a champion, to run a championship team. We know how to turn champions on, get the rock stars to come to you, the kinds of questions to ask. We know why they come and stay. Rock stars are different than the typical employee. We teach you these things. And we say, once you get those people to come to you, then guess what? They don't ask you those questions as much anymore. And guess what? They're more reliable because they come to work and they'll call you if they're not feeling well, and you can make other arrangements not to have to be the emergency fill-in. And the point is, it's like if you find yourself in a place where you're stuck doing that, with all due respect, it may be as much on you as it is on the people in your shop. There are ways to get around this stuff. And again, there's no guilt trip here. This is how you prepare your shop for an investor sale, is you make sure that you take care of these value components and you put them in place before you try to sell it to anybody, whether the investor is your kid or your key employee or some private equity person walking in the front door with a big checkbook. Same dynamic.
So we have a rather large client. They do exceptionally well.
Yep.
And in their business, the owner was the head diagnostician,
Yep.
right? And he had cancer, and had to go in for chemo and
Yeah.
et cetera, and literally disappeared. And we didn't have anybody that could be the diagnostician.
Yeah.
And so they're like, okay, well, we're going to hire this person or whatever. But where do you find them? And how did you become good at what you do? I got news for you. I tripped. I made mistakes. I screwed up.
Mhm.
I learned, right? And I didn't have somebody looking over my shoulder pointing out every
Right.
way I should do the job,
Right.
right? And so you're not doing yourself or your people any favors.
No.
If you are the shell answer man in your
Absolutely
business, you're
zero.
not doing it.
It's
All right. So
absolutely-
number 2, what was number 2 on your list?
I put it as social capital, brand,
Okay.
culture,
So brand
and
and
reputation.
I think some of our clients or some of the industry, our clients, I think, do a good job in a lot of ways.
Yep.
But I think some of the industry does a pretty good job on the brand part, but there's more to brand than just the name of your shop as
Mhm.
being recognizable, right?
Yep.
It's how does the rest of the community see you, right? And how do your employees see you? Because if your employees don't see you the way you need to, then your brand is not what you think your brand is. If you haven't created that culture of leaders
Mhm.
in your company, that team culture in your company, then your brand is not as strong,
Mhm.
right? And you may think, oh, well, everybody thinks of Bob's Auto and when they're in this city, and we are the best, and everybody knows we're the best. But frankly, that isn't gonna that might carry you forward some, but isn't carry you forward all the way. So what was number 3 on your list?
Customer capital. Have you captured the
The clients,
loyal brand ambassadors that are yours?
And
in
by the way, if you have a
marketplace?
bunch of people that don't come back, or a bunch of people that come in for cheap oil changes or whatever, and then that's not, if I can show that I have these clients that keep coming back and spending money over years with us,
Yep.
that is of extreme value,
Right.
because blue sky, which we used to talk about all the time,
Mhm.
blue sky is something that has almost completely disappeared, right? Because when you're not there, if they're only loyal to you, then they're not going to be loyal
Right.
to the brand, the
Right.
company, etc.
Yep.
And so again, if I can do these things right, I might have a business that's worth 2 million as opposed to 600,000.
Yep.
Right?
So level 4,
Yeah.
a structural capital. Have you built it in to your company?
Systems, processes.
Well, and have you pretend you have 1, 2, and 3,
Right.
right? You're the rock stars, the great brand culture, market reputation, and the loyal clients attached to you. But what if it's all wrapped around you? Have you institutionalized it so that that will continue without you having your hands on it at all? That's number 4.
So
Right?
like if I come into value a shop
Mhm.
because the courts have asked me to do that,
Right.
I'm going to look at 3 to 5 years of profit and loss. I'm also going to look at the P&L
Mhm.
because looking at the P&L and the profit and loss gives me information about is this real or BS, right? But I'm also going to look at what is the owner doing on a day-to-day basis in that company, because if you are that person, then your shop, it literally could go from, say, a 5x down to a
Mhm.
1.5x,
Mhm.
even though you might be making money,
Yep.
right? Because I've got to think about it. I've seen people buy a company. I bought a company, and the transition between getting those clients in, we lost more clients than we probably should have because I I still haven't figured that out really.
Right.
But
Right.
but I've seen shops do it, and the owner leaves, and all of a sudden the techs leave, and the
Mhm.
service advisors leave,
Mhm.
and then whoever bought it is standing there with nothing.
Right. Which
Um,
is also a dynamic in the buying process with a real investor. They try to assess that too.
yeah,
Continuity
how
of
do
your
I know if
team.
there's some continuity there? And by the
Absolutely.
way, if you have a good team and you have those systems and processes that
Mhm.
guarantee profit, and these people are being paid well, and they feel good about being a part of this company,
Right.
that gives you more continuity. So it
Mhm.
gives you that fourth
Yep.
level
Yeah.
of capital.
There are, and I'll say this, there are processes and techniques and tools behind building all of these things. Um, you start building a high performance company by being very clear about who you are and what you stand for. And when you can articulate that, and I mean, go through a process of writing it down with great clarity, that the meaning and the intensity and the emotion of the meaning is available to people who understand what that's about, what that's, those statements, if you will, say, then you have the platform to build a brand and your culture on. By the way, brand is your external company personality, culture is your internal culture personality. The culture is your internal company personality. And I make a joke with people when we're teaching this and talking about this: don't be schizophrenic. Don't
Yeah.
try to have a brand that's different externally than your culture is internally. When you get consistency on that based on the meaning that you've articulated, then you can, number one, attract team members who walk that out naturally and are aligned. Those people then bring in customers who are aligned with the meaning, the brand, and the culture. And the structuring of this is what I'm talking about, making this a process and making this become real for your company. There are tools, there are methodologies. There's nothing unknown about what we're talking about. It's unusual in this industry, but it's not unknown to science, business science, or in other industries. And that's literally what we're doing, is bringing this and having these conversations with our customers, with our industry marketplace, and say, guys, with private equity at the door, right? The baby boomers are getting ready to run from the door in volume. The private equity guys are sitting at the door, salivating, waiting for the doors to open so they can run in. In this moment in time we sit in right now, what can we be doing to build as much value as we can, to either present it to them for purchase or to say to them, I don't need you, I'm fine on my own. The boomers who are leaving, how can you build as much value in this thing as you can in the time that you have left? Whether it's a year or 5 years, or you could extend it to 7. We're not saying be working when you're 80, but we're saying don't walk out of here with the knowledge that's available to do this. Don't leave without understanding what you need from the company when you're gone. What are you going to do after you're retired? When you sold this thing, what's your life look like after that? How much money do you need to live that
Yeah.
life? And what's the business have to give you to get there? Don't do this thinking now,
And think
Cecil.
about all these guys they're at that place in time where they think, if I don't have my business, I have nothing. Like
Yeah.
it's so much a part of them.
Yeah.
And I want to talk
Yeah.
private equity, but I want to make a statement first.
Sure.
So then I want to talk a little bit about private equity.
Yeah.
My statement is this: if you're not profitable, and profitable to probably 15%,
Mm-hmm.
14%, maybe 18% is better, 20% net is better.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not profitable, none of the other crap matters. It has no value, right? So not only do I have to do these things, but I also need to understand and learn how to be profitable in my
Yes.
company and not feel
Indeed.
bad about making a
Not feel
profit
bad
in
about
my
it.
company.
Right.
Now let's talk private equity for a minute.
Yep.
So 10 years ago, 15 years ago, a couple of private equity companies step into the automotive space, and they're going to, what do we consolidate, right?
Right.
And so they go out and they buy shops, but the shops they're buying are really poorly run shops because they're thinking from their side is, well, we know how to run a business.
That's right.
And so we're going to come in and we'll put our processes and we know how to charge margin and
We're
blah,
going to
blah,
teach these
blah.
guys how to do business.
Yeah.
Right?
And these companies literally fell on their face. One of them's still here and they're actually doing better, but only
they learned.
because they changed what they were looking for. And so now these private equity companies are not looking for companies that have no margin and where the owner's in the middle of it.
Right.
They're looking for companies that have good margin, where they built the team, where they have the people capital, where they have the brand capital, etc. And they're willing to pay more for those companies than they ever did. So instead of them coming in and paying somebody $100,000 for their shop, which was poorly ran and really probably wasn't even worth that, they thought, oh, well, they're not marking their parts up and they're not getting their profits and they're not selling enough and their average repair order is too low. We'll fix all those things. And number one, they don't know how to do that.
Right.
That's what we know how to do.
I know,
but
right?
but they couldn't, they didn't, because there wasn't the basis in the human capital and the other stuff there. And then they said, uh-oh, we made a mistake. We've spent a few $1 billion on this. Now I want companies where that structure is there, that capital is there, that team is there, and I'm willing to pay 5x for that. I mean, or 4x at least at the top of the charts. And I just find that interesting. So now we have a bunch of more private equity guys looking at our industry and coming in our industry. I don't know how many, but I would tell you that I literally probably get 2 or 3 inquiries a week from different investment companies, private equity companies about, we're buying up the automotive industry. We're interested in either buying your company, or how can you help us find shops that they can buy that are these type of shops. And so let's say that now we have 15 or so, and the billions and billions of dollars that they have. This is, you know, I'm sure that the guy that owned the Bob's Hardware in the middle of town, 20 years ago, was a great guy. I'm sure that he was doing everything that he felt he should, but Bob's Hardware doesn't exist today, right? It's gone. And there, you go in the Midwest, you go in the South, there are still some small hardware stores, but almost everything is Home Depot, Lowe's. There's a Friedman's in California. More of the bigger chain, etc. And the rest are gone.
Well, there are cycles that rolling up industries go through. We're at the beginning of ours.
Yeah, and so that gives us
time,
10 to 15 years to figure this out and really work it well.
Yes, it does. And I also want to say this about us oldsters. I'm a sort of the end of the baby boomer group too, along with Cecil. I have a lot of clients that I work with, and they start, the conversation starts, I'd like to figure out how to do as much as I can before I'm done. And we get into this and they start to unpack what it takes to be a high performance company, how to put value in it like an investor would see it. What if I chose to expand my footprint, right? Take my tent stakes out further. Once they start to learn this and they realize there's a science behind it, I cannot tell you the number of people in their 60s that turn to me and they go, wait a minute, what am I going to do when I retire anyway? And now stay with me, right?
Yeah.
If I say that to some of you who are probably going to catch up with this, you're going to say, oh my God, I'm exhausted. What do you mean I'm going to change my mind? There's no way in hell. But here's the thing. If you do the same thing over and over again, right? That's Einstein's version of what it means to be insane, right? And hope for a different outcome. But what if you're not doing the same thing over and over again? What if this wave of investment money, regardless of who's holding it, right? There's good guys out there holding it and bad guys out there holding it. We can decide, we know how to decide which ones we do and don't want to work with, but the money is here. Right? The opportunity with the boomers that are going to leave is here. It's churning the marketplace.
What if the wave is gone, right?
Well, the wave is here, right? Yeah. And we're like, oh, look, the water's receding on the beach. Let's go pick up seashells. It's like, guys, you should be getting ready right now.
How many times in your life have you said to yourself, I wish I knew that 20 years ago?
Yes,
right?
And that's my point.
Or I wish someone had, frankly, I really wish my dad or somebody had just smacked me in the face and said, hey, stupid.
Wake up.
Right. Because there are things that I learn as I get older that I'm like, man, if I'd have known that 20 years ago, I don't know how many clients have come to me and said, you know, that thing, Cecil, you asked me to do? I finally did it. Man, I should have done it the first time you told me 6 years ago. Right. And I think we all, those are, those are regrets in a sense. They could be huge regrets for
Right,
you.
right,
For most of us, it's like, oh, I could be further along or whatever.
right.
But what if you did it now,
Mhm.
right? What if you knew the wave was coming? What if you planned for the wave? What if you
So let me
got the
frame the
best
wave.
surfboard,
So let's
right?
frame the wave. The wave is above the beach in terms of size, right? Some of it's dribbling on the beach already. But the reality is it's going to take 20 to 25 years for that wave to hit the beach, go all the way upland, and then come out with a reformed industry. 20 to 25
Yeah.
years. So from that perspective, it's like, okay, so I'm 35 years old. Where are you going to be in 20 years? 55.
Or
What do you?
25, you're going to be 60.
Well,
And I
that's
got
it.
news for you. You wake up in the morning, you're 60, and you
Yeah.
look in the mirror and you're like, what happened to that 40-year-old guy that I used to know that had,
Well,
more hair and,
right.
et
Yeah.
cetera, et cetera?
So my original story about guys like, what the hell am I going to do retired anyway, right? The young guys that are listening to this and gals that are in your 30s and early 40s, there's a window of time here and there's no pressure that we have to get in or get out. Our industry's early in the roll-up phase. The consolidation thing will go through 4 phases. We're at the beginning of phase 2. We don't need to unpack that
So
right now, but there's decades to go with this. And so knowing how it works and what's the science and what's the opportunity, I'm going to say this right openly to the marketplace. You guys owe it to yourselves to know what the options
your
are.
families,
You
your
need to know
wives,
and then
your
decide.
husbands,
Yes,
I mean,
your
come
children,
on.
the legacy that you leave to your communities, your team, your customers. And then when you know, you can decide with education, right? With knowledge. I don't want to be with private equity investors. I do want to sell to a key employee. I know where
But why not
value
set that
comes from,
up
right?
and make that happen the way you want it to happen
Exactly.
instead of like at the
Exactly.
last minute go, oh my
Oh,
God, the
I wish
company
I
isn't worth
had.
enough. I wish I'd, whatever.
75% of privately held business owners profoundly regret, you can put that in quotes because this is the survey, profoundly regret the way they exited the business because they did it so poorly within 12 months of exiting the business. 3/4. That's 4 million businesses that will transact, and the owners within a year will look back and say, man, I blew that opportunity.
So
We're saying to you, don't blow it, guys.
So
Learn, right?
think about, I
Mm,
mean, the guys you put together
mm.
come on, Cecil, what do you call it? A group of shop owners, platform.
Platform. Yep.
You put together a
An
platform,
investment platform.
an
Yep.
investment platform with 5
Yeah.
guys
Sure.
with multiple shops,
Yeah.
and then you went out and you shopped private equity after
Yep.
creating the human capital,
Mhm.
the other the other 4 steps, and helping them get there.
Yeah.
And so I know all those guys, and they're smart guys.
Mhm.
There's not like a dumb guy in the group.
Right.
There's some guys that are probably not as smart as some
Mm.
of the others, but there's nobody in there that's like
Understatement.
an
Yep.
unlimited genius.
Right. Right. Right.
Like I couldn't do it.
They're
Right?
normal, smart
They're
guys.
normal
Right.
smart
They're
guys
wise.
in
They're
our
wise
in our
guys.
industry.
Yeah.
And by the way, so they woke up one morning and there was millions and millions and millions in their bank
10
account.
digits, not 9.
How much fun are they having now,
Right.
still playing in the industry
Right.
with millions in their bank accounts, right? As opposed to,
Well,
I'm getting towards the end. I haven't built the capital. I haven't built what I need to create the value in my shop.
yep.
And now I'm afraid what happens if I get sick, or what happens
Yep.
if I can't, who's going to take care of me? Which kid am I going to burden with myself?
Exactly. Right.
Or if there aren't any kids, how am I going to
Where
survive
do
the
I go with
next
this thing?
15 years? Or should I just go in the back and shoot my brains out, right? It's such a different dynamic, right? That it's so opposite,
Right.
right? And it's out there ready to go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I guess that's our point. Maybe if we have 1,000 points we've probably made today without knowing it.
Yeah.
Maybe if there's a point, start thinking about it now. There are methods and tools to use. Exit strategy comes from what happens after you're gone. Back up from being done with it to what it takes to be comfortable being done with it, to what you need to get from it to be able to get to that point. And then we can back up from that vision, if you will, to what you have in your hand today and figure out how do you close that gap in the time frame that you have to achieve that long-term goal. And if you wait to the end, you're lot less likely to get that done than if you start that thinking right now. Tools are here, processes are here, the people who know how to do it are here. We want to help
We've
you,
done
right?
it.
We're in this industry to
Yeah.
help you with this. That's why we're here. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm good. I
Yeah.
think we made the point, and I think we talked about value and
Yeah.
creating what you want, and you don't have to build. I also want you to know that you don't have to build 7 shops.
No, you don't.
You don't have to be part of a platform,
No, you don't.
but run the company that you have well
As well as
to
you can.
create opportunities for yourselves and your family
Yep.
and to live well. Because when it's all said and done,
Mm-hmm.
that's what it's all about:
If
is
you're going to work
living
hard, you might
well.
as well do well doing it. So,
If you want to know, like, you say to yourselves, well, you guys, you're coaches, and of course you believe you're trying to sell us something or whatever, right? And yes, obviously that's how I make a living, or we make a living, is by helping other people, which is, I don't know that there's a better place to be. But we have so much information that we don't charge for. We have our YouTube channel, we have our gearforshops.com. In the next slide, there will be a QR code that will get you hooked up. And you don't have to pay us. You don't have to say, oh, Cecil, I want to buy a coaching program, or I want to be in one of your programs. Just get as much information as you can, and make sure that you are doing the best that you can to move forward. And then if you decide, hey, I would like to have a coach or a coaching company or somebody help me, we
We're
certainly
here.
are more than qualified to do that. And we do that routinely with all of the shops, several hundred shops that we work with. So in the next slide, take a look and at least go look at some of the classes that are free. And I'll help you make profits and help you get out of your own way and move forward.
Yeah.